Shabbat Shalom. This week's Parshat Yitro, talks about Ma'amad Har Sinai and Matan Torah. And as you know, the Ma'amad, the event of Har Sinai, was accompanied by a lot of sounds and sights. And among the instructions that Moshe Rabbeinu received before the actual giving of the Torah was that there would be a sound of the Shofar. And when the Shofar blast ended, then people could come closer to Har Sinai. The Torah says, B'mshocha yovel, hema yalu v'har. And Rashi on that pasuk says, what is hayovel? It's the shofar, with the definite article. It's the same shofar that was on the ram that Abraham offered in place of Yitzhak in the Akeda. And this, of course, comes from the Midrash in Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. The Ramban is, I would say, more than critical. He says, what does this mean? I mean, Abraham, offered that ram as a korban olah. He burnt the entire thing. So what, did the Kodesh Baruch Hu go and pick up all the different pieces of dust and cinder from that korban and put them together? It sort of reminds us, of how people understand Tchiyat HaMesim to be, that, after all of our bodies have disintegrated and been scattered to the wind, Kodesh Baruch Hu will, pick up the pieces and put them back together again. But the Ramban is saying this in a, I wouldn't say scoffing fashion, but he seems to think this should not be taken seriously. And then he goes on and offers his opinion about this. Rashi just brings the Midrash. Rashi doesn't say that the Midrash should be taken literally, but I think the Ramban thinks, perhaps correctly, that Rashi will take the Midrash literally, that this was the very same shofar from the ram that was offered in the Akeda. And after, showing this, expressing his amazement and saying this can't be, the Ramban says, "Aval afi da'ati agadazu yesh la sod," and he goes on and says that the sod is that the sound was pachad Yitzhak. This is the sound, and the people. Okay, we'll come back to this in a minute, but let me go on to the Maharal. As you know, the criticisms of the Ramban on Rashi spawned a whole literature of its own of people who defend Rashi and press forward with the criticisms of the Ramban. And the two major players in this subfield are the Ra'im, Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, who tries to defend Rashi against the criticisms of the Ramban, and the Maharal in his Gur Aryeh, which is it's a commentary on the Torah, but it's for the most part taking forward whatever the Ramban and then the Ra'im said and carrying on his own direction. The Maharal says that if he has anything to be wondering about, is that how anyone could think that it was actually the very same shofar of the Akeda. I mean, how could Rashi think so? How could the Ramban think that Rashi thought so? He says, "V'chi adam ba'olam shesover shaya shofar hazeh." The Maharal, I think, is being a bit too optimistic, because there are people, even in our own day, who, for whatever reason, can't seem to free themselves from taking these midrashim literally. But then the Maharal goes on and develops at length an explanation. He goes back to the source, the Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, and says that that this ram, this ram that was offered in place of Yitzhak and Akeda, was a very special ram. Every part of it played a role in a symbol in Jewish history. If one horn was the shofar at Har Sinai, the other horn would be the shofar in Yemot HaMashiach and Yom Hadin. The gidim, the sinews, were used in David's harp, Kinor David. The skin of the ram was the belt, the gartel of Eliyahu Navi, and he goes on to say this because this is not the real, ram, the one that walked on four legs and chewed grass that was eventually sacrificed by Abraham, but it's some sort of celestial archetype, something in Elohit, that is an exact replica, and therefore it's available, all the parts available to serve for whatever symbolic or other reason in other parts of Jewish history. The Maharal goes on this at great length, and it connects to his ideas of nature and supernatural, which are very well developed and sophisticated. And he himself, if you go read through to the end of this this comment, is not satisfied with his analysis, and sort of says at the end, this is something that it's difficult to explain, and you just have to rack your brains and think through it, and maybe you get some insight. I want to go back to the Ramban. As I said, the Ramban after it says that this Akeda has a sod, a secret meaning, or it's an allegory, it's a metaphorical way or a figurative way of expressing some idea. And he says, Yesh la sod. Pachad Yitzhak. Pachad Yitzhak is, Yitzhak was, he had the fear that he had at the Akeda. I spoke about this in one video when Avram stood over him with a knife. It's his trembling when he found out that he had been fooled, and that the person he gave the bracha to wasn't really Esav. But he's talking here, the Ramban, about the Har Sinai, where it says, that the entire Jewish people were themselves trembling and terrified. And this is his culminax. Now, the culmination of his esoteric or figurative reading. Most commentators on the Ramban take this in a Kabbalistic fashion, including the Sfirot and things which the Ramban rarely mentions explicitly, though I'm not saying that he didn't have any connection to them. And talking about basically that the understanding it this way would, in my humble opinion, mean that Gevura, which is one of the highest Sfirot, was something that the main body of the Jewish people were not able to apprehend at that time. They weren't able to hear actually words, clear, enunciated words coming from Gevura, Zulati Kol, but rather an echo. Kol means echo, a sort of a weaker, fainter replica of the real speech that is enunciated. So because the Jewish people were not at the level of being able to, they received something directly from Gevura, they simply heard some sort of unenunciated, sort of flat signal, a kol, an echo. But I think there's another way also of understanding this, which actually brings it closer to the Rambam's political philosophy, that the Pachad Yitzhak and Midat Adin mean that at their spiritual level, the Jews were not really ready for a deep understanding of all the philosophical underpinnings of the law and the full theology that accompanies Judaism and the true meaning of Achdut Hashem. What they needed then, which is the first step in getting on the road to that sort of level, is a law code that will get them to clean their act up, to fix their, to get their moral behavior on track and prevent them from doing the kind of excesses that they're used to doing in Egypt. And for that, you need to instill in them the fear of God, the fear of the law. And this is what the level that they were at to have just this kol, this fear that would make them observe the Torah, and then, B'ezrat Hashem, they would move on to where they could actually go on, and we can all go on to have a deeper understanding of the underlying principles and tremendous ideas that underlie our Torah and our way of life. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.